Welcome to Saga Thing, where we're putting the sagas of the Icelanders on trial. I'm John.
And I'm Andy. And here we are for the third time to discuss Njal Saga. It's officially a trilogy now, John.
I know. There are now as many episodes of this podcast dedicated to Njal Saga as there are, good Nightmare on Elm Street movies. There are as many episodes as there are juggling balls in a juggler's starting kit.
As many episodes as there are Amigos.
Yes! There are as many episodes as there are Ninja Turtles named for artists born after the Western invention of the printing press, Andy.
Oh, okay. Now, I'm hoping that you had to look that up in some weird preparation, but I know you didn't. And the odd turtle out would be...
Donatello.
Of course. So, now, while 3 is a nice number for stories, it's far from enough to cover Njal Saga the way we should, or at least the way we want to.
Exactly. As we prep these episodes and then sit down to record them, it's becoming increasingly difficult to balance summary and discussion. There's just so much going on, and so much that's worth investigating further. It's not considered one of the pillars of Western literature for nothing, you know.
Yeah, and we can't possibly do justice to the text either in summary or in discussion. So, please forgive us if we miss something that you feel should be given more attention. Trust that we're aware of the potential in the material. We're stuck.
Now, having said that, we're going to take a bit of extra time to talk about what's happening this time out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have to. I already feel like we rushed through the Bergthor and Hallgerd feud, which is one of the most important sequences in saga literature.
Yeah, I felt the same way. There's still a lot to say about that, but we'll have to refer you to our bibliography page, which will be linked to this episode. There's a lot of good material there for you to sift through. Yeah,
and if you feel like we're missing something that should be on that list, go ahead and send us the information. I'll add it to the bibliography.
I like that we're compiling a bibliography for Njal Saga, even if it is just a select bibliography. We should really be doing that for all the sagas.
Oh, yeah, that is just more work for us, John, but I do agree with you. I had a lot of fun compiling the additions to the bibliography that you sent me, and there's something about that kind of research that just gets my blood going, you know? And we're looking these things up anyway, so it just makes sense to share what we find and the things that we like.
Excellent.
Now, are you going to go back through the sagas we've already covered and put together some bibliography for those as well? It seems like the right thing to do.
Well, I wasn't planning on doing any extra work, but I'm sure I've got some lists laying around from when we were prepping those episodes. And if there are any ambitious listeners out there with access to university databases, we welcome you to get involved in compiling any bibliography you feel like sharing. It might be cool to have a section of our website devoted to saga bibliography and current research.
That's an interesting idea. Yeah, if anyone's out there and they're interested in helping with any of this, just get in touch with us through email, sagathingpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll figure out a way to give you credit somehow on that bibliography page for things that you contributed to the list.
All right. We've got a lot to do in this episode, and we're going to be covering an important part of the story today. If anyone listening has been disappointed with the low body count in this saga up to this point, you're in for a treat. Gunnar is a man of peace, but once he finally works himself up to anger, it's a bloodbath.
Yes. But before we get into what's to come, we need to offer a quick refresher for anyone who's already forgotten what happened in the previous episode. Are you ready for the recap, John?
All right. Get your finger in your ear, Andy. Let's go. Last time on Njal Saga. We met Icelandic Superman Gunnar Hmundason and his friend Njal Thorgerson. Njal is a renowned legal mind, while Gunnar is famous for his physical skills and fighting ability.
Don't forget his stunning good looks.
Oh, that's right, he's as handsome as a picture, and a real gentleman, too.
Thank you. Gunnar's an adventuresome sort who craves a life of action. He finds that action along with some fame and fortune as he swashbuckles his way through Scandinavia, attacking Viking ships with his bold-hearted brother Koldkegi. With his newfound glory, Gunnar eventually returns home to Iceland, where he meets the ravishing femme fatale, Hallgerd Longlegs. And wherever Hallgerd goes, trouble soon follows. Before you know it, there's trouble brewing between the tempestuous Hallgerd and Njal's obstreperous wife, Bergthora.
An exchange of insults leads to a series of murders between the two households, but best buds Njal and Gunnar refuse to allow the feud between their lady friends to drive them apart. Things get messy when Njal's friend Thord, foster father to the Njalsons, is murdered by one of Hallgerd's henchmen. But with every new killing, Njal and Gunnar manage to smooth things over with a legal settlement. Njal's reputation does take a hit, however, when Hallgerd's cousin Sigmund composes a dirty verse, mocking Njal with the nickname Old Beardless.
The heroic Gunnar doesn't stand idly by, however. He offers a stern warning to all who know the verse and vows to become the enemy of anyone who repeats it.
Now, despite that warning, rumor flies, and word of the insult soon gets to Bergthora, Njal's wife, who goads her sons into seeking revenge. They find and kill Sigmund and his friend Skjold. 3 awkward years pass before Njal offers a gift to Gunnar to repay him for the loss of Sigmund. His overture of friendship melts the ice, and the two men reiterate their shared commitment to their friendship.
Huzzah! You know, these summaries are running the risk of becoming a full feature in their own right. I'm glad we don't have to cover what happened in the first episode there.
Yeah, by the end of the saga, these recaps could end up being pretty long if we tried to cover everything. I think it's wise to limit ourselves to just the previous episode.
Yeah, so we're all caught up now.
Absolutely. But the references to Njal's beard are important, even though their implications are sort of beneath the surface for much of today's episode.
But not far below the surface. No. But the focus of this episode and the next one will be on Gunnar, who will finally start swinging more than a pouch of money around.
Well, like I said, the body count is about to go way up.
Yeah. Now, before we jump into the new stuff, I'd like to get your opinion on something one of our listeners asked after listening to part 2 of Njal Saga.
Okay, what's the question?
Well, Sarah posted a comment on our website asking about the inner workings of marriages in this saga. Specifically, she wants to know why Njal and Gunnar don't do anything to stop their wives from using members of the household to conduct a dangerous feud. If Thrain can divorce his wife for composing a poem about him and then engage himself immediately to a teenage girl that same day, shouldn't Gunnar or Njal be able to do something about the situation? I mean, if they don't want to divorce them, she asks, why not at least a quick beating, which Sarah does note isn't at all uncommon in the medieval world, though she also notes that hitting a spouse is never okay.
Well, it's a good question. There's certainly nothing to stop either one of them from divorcing their spouse. We've talked about how easy it is to divorce someone in this period. And I suppose within reason, physical violence is also an option, regardless of how reprehensible it may be. But I think part of the problem here is that we as modern audiences have trouble understanding how to think about the intersecting worlds of men and women in the sagas. The ways that are open to Njal and Gunnar, short of divorcing their wives, which neither one of them particularly wants to do. Remember, these are both reasonably happily married men. I mean, Gunnar, perhaps, as we'll see today, there are issues there. But Njal never registers any displeasure with being married to Bergthora. Divorce is kind of the DEFCON 1 options, the nuclear option, for dealing with the problem. Neither one of them wants to go to that extreme. Their other options are largely based in things like law and in things like making settlements or conducting a violent feud. None of those things really work against your own spouse, and in any case, women are excluded from those modes of resolving conflict. The women, on the other hand, because they're outside those modes of conflict, are in some ways shielded from the consequences of that conduct. They're able to conduct a feud while leaving it to their husbands to deal with the ramifications and the fallout from that feud. They're able to sort of enact their unhappiness without actually having to then deal with the purses and deal with the legal settlements and have to deal with the hit to the friendship or hit to public image that the men take. So the problem here, I think, is that they're both just living in different worlds when it comes to this particular aspect of a marriage. And it's very difficult for a person of this time to find their way across that divide.
Yeah. Well, and I would add 2 things. The first is very simple, and that is that this does highlight, in many ways, the independence of women in medieval Iceland. They're free to act as they choose. And again, Absolutely. Short of divorcing them or causing a major hullabaloo, there's not much that the men can necessarily do. These women can act independently and deal with the consequences just as a man would. And
it's worth pointing out that Sarah mentioned whether physical violence is an option here. Perhaps it is, and perhaps socially there isn't the same stigma attached to it there would be in the modern day. But as we saw in part 1 of this saga, hitting your spouse doesn't come without consequences, right? We saw Hallgirth take it upon herself to revenge herself on her first husband, and have him killed for having struck her. And in the second case, a member of her family, even without her desiring him to do it, decides to take revenge for her having been struck by her husband and kills her husband. That we shouldn't make the mistake of thinking that because other men in the culture might not censure a man for physically striking his wife, that doesn't mean that there aren't consequences or that the wife herself might not take it upon herself to seek vengeance.
Yeah. So the other thing I'll mention quickly is just for narrative symmetry. Hallgarth and Bergthor represent one avenue of conflict and conflict resolution, and Gunnar and Njal represent a complete other one. So it's partly the author's choice in order to kind of get the themes of this whole plot kind of working to have these two things going on simultaneously.
Right.
Njal and Gunnar's friendship and peaceful resolution, and the more violent kind of vengeful resolutions that Bergthor and Hallgarth seek. So those things are really important for the thematic inner workings of this text. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question, Sarah.
Yes. If anyone else has questions about this saga or any saga we've covered, please feel free to ask. We'll try to answer them either online or in a future episode, or maybe both.
Yeah, and we have the Quarter Court coming up sometime soon, don't we?
Yeah, we've got 2 or 3 more sagas before then. But the second Quarter Court is getting closer. I think we'll get there before the end of the year.
Yeah, well, we can answer a lot of questions there, so start sending in questions, and we'll get to them, you Saga fans, you.
You Saga fans, you?
Yeah.
Oh, dear God.
Okay.
I'm gonna chalk that up to you not having got much sleep lately.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, let's get this episode underway, shall we? Hit the summary button.
In this episode, our hero Gunnar is confronted with an identity crisis as the peace he's worked so hard to maintain in the region begins crumbling around him. While Gunnar's friendship with Njal is secure and the feud between their wives goes quiet, new threats emerge that will challenge Gunnar's patience and test his mettle in battle once again. The first challenge comes from the wealthy farmer Otkell Skarfsson, whose well-supplied storehouse is raided and burned by the Irish slave Melkoth, sent by Hallgarth to settle the score. Despite Gunnar's efforts to right the wrongs of his wife, Otkell and his malevolent counselor Skamkill pursue a more aggressive legal vengeance, hoping to shame Gunnar and improve their own standing. To achieve their goals, they enlist the aid of 2 powerful new accomplices, Gizur the White and Ger the Gothi. The villainous Morð Valgerderson also steps in to plot against Gunnar. And despite the best efforts of Njal and Gizur the White, the conflict will eventually erupt into a bloody battle, where Gunnar's Atgeir finds itself useful once again. The second feud follows quickly on the heels of the first. This time Gunnar tangles with the Starkatharsons and the Egilsons, a group of troublesome men whose eagerness to compete against Gunnar in sport and social politics quickly leads to a bloody violence. And while Gunnar may profess to be a reluctant killer, he certainly seems to relish dispatching these villains. Now, see Gunnar in all his wrathful glory as Saga Thing continues its trek through Njal's Saga, chapters 46 to 63.
So, as I was hinting before that intro, the thing that jumps out at me about the chapters we're covering this time is the focus on masculinity, especially how male identity is socially negotiated.
Wow. That's a heck of a way to come back from the intro. But I do like that word negotiated you used. The sagas are often thought of as depicting a hyper-masculinized culture, and I don't know.
Yeah. I think actually we've even been guilty of presenting them that way sometimes.
Well, I don't necessarily think that it's inaccurate to say that, but recognizing that the sagas have a preoccupation with manliness isn't the same as saying that manliness itself is simple.
Right. Or even that it's an unalloyed blessing to be male in this culture. As Armand Jacobson says, masculinity seems to have been imagined as something of a burden in 10th century Iceland.
Well, that's something of an extreme statement, but a lot of the sagas really do treat male identity as a potential vulnerability. And as we'll see, the writer who created Gunnar is very aware of the potential pitfalls of masculinity. Male gender was, and often still is, a passport into the power games of society. And in medieval Iceland, manliness is a major component of a man's honor, which defines his reputation and standing. So attacking another man's manliness was an effective way of checking his entire social reputation.
Of course, having said that, we should also note that the sagas are themselves almost certainly produced primarily by and for male sensibilities. Any claim to the difficulties of life as a man in the sagas is almost certainly a degree of special pleading on behalf of that male-centered worldview.
Maybe, but don't sell the sagas short. The things we talked about in the last 2 episodes, like betrothal customs, consent in marriage, women as feud masterminds, women as managers of the household, those are so interesting to me in part because they do seem to suggest that they're looking at the world from multiple perspectives.
Sure. I should emphasize that I said primarily male, not exclusively male.
Okay, yeah.
Our knowledge of the audience and even the authorship of the sagas involves an awful lot of guesswork.
Yeah, that's fair. And although I think that the position of women in this saga in particular is really interesting. While we may start out feeling sympathetic to figures like Un or Halgarth for being forced into marriages, both of them quickly turn into symbols of unchecked female power, and negative ones at that. Mm-hmm. Un squanders the dowry money that Gunnar worked so hard to get from Hrut, and we all know how Halgarth expresses her will. And Bergthor isn't exactly a heartwarming or inspiring image of womanhood either. So, I'm not always sure that the author has the best interests of women in medieval Iceland in mind.
Right. Which, of course, is a long way of saying that it's all more complicated than we've managed to express so far.
Yeah.
Let's get back to manliness.
Yes, sorry about that.
No, it's fine. The portrayal of women in this saga is worth talking about. I mean, if any of you listeners are academics and want to explore this topic of women in the sagas professionally, we're actually hosting a panel at the 2017 International Congress on Medieval Studies at Western Michigan University on that subject.
Look at that, a plug for our panel. That is very smart of you, John.
Well, it seemed appropriate given the context.
Yes. So if you have a paper or want to write a paper about women in the sagas, we're sponsoring a panel called The Second Sex, Women and Power in Old Norse Icelandic Literature. So just send us an abstract by September 15th and we'll consider it. You can use our email, that's sagathingpodcast@gmail.com for that. And we're eager to continue the conversation there, so please do.
Unless, of course, you're listening to this in, say, 2018 or 2019.
Yeah, then never mind. Don't worry about it.
You missed a hell of a panel. Now back to masculinity.
Right. It's about time.
Now, like we were saying before, even as manhood was seen as a foundational source of strength, it was a fragile basis for a man's reputation. It was necessary to that reputation, but it had to be publicly performed and always reinforced against any insinuations or attacks.
Right, and those attacks might come in a variety of forms, like sexual impotence and sexual non-normativity, for example, are just 2 ways to criticize a man.
Right. I mean, there's also legal incompetence, emotional displays, failure to provide for one's family.
Failure to take violent revenge.
On the other hand, there's also being too quick to turn to violence.
Yeah.
Overly violent men and berserkers aren't exactly beloved hearth companions in Icelandic society. And as we saw with Hrut's curse, even a fully functioning or over-functioning sexually heteronormative man was potentially vulnerable to magical attack or legal humiliation or social embarrassment.
And I would add emotions can be problematic as well. Anger can be acceptable in the right context, but expressions of other emotions threaten to undermine the masculine facade. I mean, the most emotionally volatile man in the sagas might be Egil Skallagrimsson, and his masculinity is more or less unquestioned until his old age. In this saga, we'll get to see some emotional vulnerability from Gunnar soon, and I think that's an interesting moment, and it's received a lot of critical attention for good reason over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, none of the cases are built on a simple binary of strong or weak men, or men who are respected as manly and those who aren't. There's really no one metric for deciding what constitutes manliness.
Yeah, and can we talk about appearances now?
Yeah, I was hoping we would, actually. Go ahead.
Yeah, so last time we talked a bit about Njal's beardlessness and what that means, and also about Halgarth's attempt to humiliate him with accusations of androgyny or sexual immaturity. And Njal's manliness isn't built on the masculine model of physical dominance like Gunnar's is. He's a lawyer. But as a man, he's still vulnerable to Halgarth's insinuations concerning what his appearance might reveal about his manhood.
Right. So an important point to remember is that this saga offers several competing archetypes of masculinity, and there's no one behavior that's allowed to fully own a claim to being totally right or beyond reproach.
Yeah, like I said, we saw a bit of that same kind of pluralism last time when we focused on the saga's presentation of women. The exact narrative interest is up for debate, but this is an author who is interested in gender. And in this section, the masculinity question feels very deliberate.
Well, as last time, there are a handful of go-to scholars and readings we'll be addressing throughout the episode, but I think for now, let's just pick up where we left off.
With Njal and Gunnar sharing a bromance for the ages.
Part 11. A Friend in Need.
As Gunnar and Njal rekindle their friendship, a terrible famine hits Iceland, making life difficult for everyone.
Oh, right, the famine.
Now, diligent listeners will remember a famine in Henthor's saga, where Blundkettel traveled to Henthor's farm to ask for supplies to feed the many followers that he had.
Right. Now, if you remember that part of Henthor's saga, this next part will sound somewhat familiar, although I think the subtle differences are revealing. It's worth comparing the two.
It is, but, we don't have to do that ourselves. If you can get a hold of William Ian Miller's Blood-Taking and Peacemaking, which is included in our bibliography, he devotes 2 whole sections to analyzing both famine scenes in their cultural context, and it's really good stuff.
So that's service.
Yeah. Now, we're just going to focus on Njal's saga, but please don't blame me if I make reference to the Henthor scene.
I'll try not to.
All right, so after a terrible harvest year, people all over the land are running short of hay and food. Gunnar, being the kind of guy that he is, shares what he's got with anyone who comes asking. And Blundkettel did the same thing, remember? And just like Blundkettel, Gunnar soon finds himself running short and in need of more supplies for the long winter.
See, that's just bad planning.
Maybe, but it's also great PR. Gunnar's reputation was already great following his trip abroad. His even-handedness in the feud between Hallgirth and Bergthora, and now this abundant generosity, only further enhance his reputation and his honor. I mean, he's already got hero status, so I guess he might be looking for sainthood at this point. If Iceland were a Christian nation, that is.
Public adoration makes for a thin supper, Andy. And fame? Nah, it's an empty purse.
I believe you're quoting something, but I don't know what. What is that?
No time for that. Gunnar's household is hungry.
No. Go ahead. Tell me what it is. What was that?
All right. It's Krull. I'm quoting Krull.
I'm saddened, but I'm not surprised, really.
Hey, you shouldn't be. If you haven't seen that film, it's a fine, fine piece of cinema.
Well, I remember seeing previews for Krull when I was very young. I don't remember what year that came out. You probably do, but I was very young.
1983, summer.
Yeah, so there you go. I was 5. It looked like, a future medievalist dream, so I was begging my dad to take me to see that. But he refused. I don't know why. And I don't think I've ever seen the movie because of that. Thanks, Dad. But I haven't thought about it until now. So, is this any good? Should I go see this?
Oh my gosh. I cannot give you a brief answer to this, and I really want to get on with the saga. Krull is one of my favorite terrible films.
Is that right?
It's a very satisfying bad movie. If you like 80s schlock, it is a must-see.
Oh, well, then maybe we have to have a little viewing party.
Absolutely. Little nugget here. It is also the first film roles of both Robbie Coltrane and one Liam Neeson.
Wait, Liam Neeson's in this?
Yes.
Did you say it's his first movie? Because I thought that Excalibur was his first movie.
Is that true?
Yes, it is. Looks like you learned something today, John. Okay, back to the story. So, Gunnar visits a nearby neighbor, Otkell Skarfason, and he wants to purchase these supplies. He takes with him his brother Kolskegi, his cousin Lambi Sigurðarson, and his uncle/stepson-in-law, Thrain Sigfusson.
Yeah, as we said last time, Gunnar's uncle married Hallgirth's daughter. It's complicated and a little distressing to modern sensibilities. More importantly, Gunnar is careful not to bring too big a party so that Akka won't feel threatened. Or at least that's what he hopes. But it's also worth noting that he's not alone.
Yeah. The size of the group is actually pretty important. Typically speaking, a hostile party would have more than 5 people, since raiding someone else's property is a dangerous activity that requires some backup. This group is small enough to suggest to Otkell from the outset that the visit's not hostile.
Right. Otkell Skarfason is a difficult man, and he's the central figure of a group of men who are going to become important to this next part of the story, so we should really introduce them all briefly.
Okay, but I'm going to warn our listeners, there are a lot of guys here.
You might want to take notes.
Now, how is that different from any saga? Our hardcore listeners are always prepared for this kind of thing, and honestly, our less hardcore listeners know when to tune us out.
Which is all the time, I assume. So, Otkell has a son named Thorgir Otkelsson, who's young but promising. Otkell also has 2 brothers named Hallkel Skarfason and Hallbjorn the White. Hallkel is big and strong and lives with Otkell, while Hallbjorn is a seafarer and probably the best of the brothers.
So, 2 brothers and a son. Everybody got that?
And there's also Otkell's neighbor, Skamkull of Hoff, who is malicious, untruthful, and overbearing. And Melkolf, a troublesome Irish slave Otkell purchased from his brother Hallbjorn.
And don't forget Otkell's other family connections. He's got 2 second cousins, Gizur the White and Geir Goli. both of them well-known chieftains with lots of influence, so they'll probably be important.
Right. Now, ultimately, the point the author is trying to make through this list of relations is that Otkell's got powerful connections. And with Otkell and Skamkel leading the way, things will turn sour pretty quickly.
Right, and they waste no time in causing a bit of trouble. Gunnar comes to Otkell in good faith and asks if he can buy hay and food, since Otkell has a surplus. But Otkell refuses to sell him either from the start. The reason for this refusal isn't immediately clear, though.
But isn't Otkell acting on the advice of his friend Skamkel? The guy who was introduced, as we just said, as malicious, untruthful, overbearing, and vicious to deal with. I mean, that would explain it.
Yeah, that's certainly part of the problem. But the saga only introduces Skamkel after Otkell has already refused to sell either food or hay to Gunnar. There's something more going on here, I think, but we'll get to that as events unfold. At the very least, what we can say is that Otkell is taking advantage of the situation to be a little high-handed with Gunnar.
Right. Now, I know you had mentioned the famine scene in Henthor's saga earlier. This is almost exactly the same, right? I mean, Blundkettel had been giving out hay and food to everyone in his region during the famine, and then came up short on his own farm, forcing him to ask Henthor for some help.
Yes, and just like Otkell, Henthor refuses to sell or give any supplies for some reason. But remember that Blundkettel ends up taking the supplies from Henthor by force and then paying a fair amount against Henthor's will. It's kind of a big deal in that saga.
Well, it leads to Blundkettel's death, so yeah, kind of a big deal. But you're right. In Gunnar's case, he's not going to take anything by force, although Thrain does suggest they do exactly what Blundkettel did. Skamkel steps in at that point and says, "The men of Mossfell would have to be dead before you sons of Sigfus could rob them."
And that puts an end to that, doesn't it? Gunnar has to leave empty-handed.
Well, not completely. Otkell does offer to sell Gunnar his Irish slave Melkolf. He's a useless slave that Otkell's brother Halbjorn had given to him for free.
Oh, that's a grand estimation of Melkolf's value.
Well, Halbjorn does at least tell Otkell that Melkolf isn't a good slave, which is more than Otkell does for Gunnar. Whatever the case, Gunnar agrees to the sale for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know why he's agreeing to another mouth to feed when he's already failing to find food for the ones he's got. Maybe he feels like he has to come home with something, even if he didn't manage to get food.
I'm not sure that bringing home another mouth to feed is going to help him save face here. It's a pretty foolish thing to do if we're only counting mouths.
Maybe, but remember that Gunnar is overly generous. He just can't stop helping people out no matter what, even at great expense to himself.
Right. Now, in this specific case, it's not very smart. Don't forget that every time he brings a servant into his household, Hallgarth uses them as cannon fodder in a war with Bergthora.
Yes. And can I ask a quick question here?
Sure.
Yeah, why doesn't Gunnar just go to Njal for help? I mean, they've repaired their relationship, right? And initially, when I was thinking about this, I thought that maybe Otkell's property at Kirkjubar might be a lot closer, so maybe that would be more convenient. But then I checked the map, and Njal's farm is just as close to Gunnar's property as Otkell's, so what's the deal here? Why not go to Njal?
Well, I've always thought that Gunnar might avoid going to Njal specifically because they are friends. Remember that Bergthora is not a big fan of Gunnar's household, even if everything is great between Njal and Gunnar.
Which isn't necessarily the case. They might be friends again, but the wounds left by the feud aren't fully healed yet.
Exactly. And to make things worse, Bergthora is the one who controls the stores at Njal's house.
And that's an important point, actually. I mean, we talk about the division of authority in an Icelandic farmhouse, but in a situation like this, it's Bergthora, not Njal, who ought to be making decisions about sharing food and how much with another household. Which also brings up the point that Gunnar probably ought to be less generous with his own supplies, right? He's technically infringing on Hallgarth's privileges by unilaterally deciding to share food with others.
That's a good point. Meanwhile, we see the correct respect for the wife's privilege when Njal finds out about Gunnar's situation. He's obviously appalled by Otkell's refusal and mentions it to Bergthora, saying, "This was badly done, refusing to sell to Gunnar. There's little hope for others if men like him cannot get supplies."
Yes, and Bergthora replies, "Why do you need to say much about it? It would be much more noble to share our food and hay with him."
"That's as true as day. I'll give him some supplies."
Yes, so Njal brings this whole thing up casually with his wife, but he does it in a way that gives Bergthora the ability to make a decision about the household goods.
Right, and for her part, Bergthora recognizes that Njal wants to give supplies to Gunnar and takes the initiative when it's offered to her, rather than risk having Njal push the point.
Yeah, I should add in William Ian Miller's reading of this whole thing, he says that Njal is basically nagging her. He makes a lot of the Bergthor's comment that why do you have to talk so much about it, as if he's just kind of been going on, and he's taking advantage of his ability to annoy her to get her to agree to it. Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure if I see it that way.
I believe that if we saw more than one statement from him about it.
What I think is interesting here, maybe more interesting, is that Bergthor is also savvy enough to recognize that the act of giving these goods to Gunnar brings with it some important political implications for her household.
Sure. The gift implies something about the status of Njal's household in relation to Gunnar's. I don't think Bergthor is unaware of the opportunity this presents her. But Njal is more interested in helping a friend in need. He's not concerned about the power struggles between the wives. He approaches Gunnar with the supplies and says, I don't want you to ever turn to anyone but me when you're in need.
Yes, it's a nice moment. And as far as Njal and Gunnar are concerned, this gift is an important symbol of their friendship. Gunnar's deeply touched by it, and he says, Your gifts are good, but of greater worth to me is the friendship of you and your sons.
So, Bergthor has provided Njal with the chance to act magnanimously toward a friend, and Njal has demonstrated his deference to Bergthor's control of the household.
Hallgarth and Gunnar could learn a lesson about happy marriages from these two.
They could, but they won't. You know that.
No, of course they won't.
Part 12. Thief's Eyes.
I don't think it'll be a surprise to anyone when I say that Hallgarth is going to be a problem.
No, the title of the section kind of gives that away.
So, as soon as Gunnar leaves for the All Thing the next summer, Hallgarth, as is her wont, decides that she wants to tweak Otkell for refusing Gunnar. Just like Bergthor, Hallgarth is hyper-aware of the game of honor.
That's right. Whereas Gunnar and Njal have always been most concerned with maintaining peace, the women are more interested in status and the intricacies of the honor game. When Gunnar came home empty-handed from Otkell's, Hallgarth knew exactly what Otkell was doing.
Well, and to be fair, she's not wrong. Otkell wasn't just being mean for the sake of being mean. Mm-hmm. He's clearly jealous of Gunnar's status in the region, and he enjoyed the opportunity to have power over him for just that one moment.
Right.
Yeah, by letting Gunnar go home with nothing but a lazy slave who would bring no value to the house whatsoever, Otkell made Gunnar look bad, at least in Otkell's mind and his family's mind. And this doesn't sit well with Hallgarth. Fortunately, she's got a new Irish slave named Melkoff who knows his way around Otkell's farm.
See, this isn't good.
No, it's not. She approaches Melkoff and asks him to go steal some cheese and butter from Otkell's storehouse.
Well, she doesn't really ask him. I mean, she threatens to kill him if he refuses to go.
True, though that's an interesting moment in itself. I mean, she has to threaten him because, as terrible as Melkoff may be, he's not happy about being sent out as a thief. Mm-hmm. It highlights just how despicable theft was considered in Icelandic culture.
Right. Well, and the issue is secrecy. Right. We've seen this before with murder. Mm-hmm. The problem is the deception and the anonymity of the thief. Medieval Iceland,
yes.
It's like a gift exchange culture, which means that balancing the ledger is extremely important. If you don't know who killed your relative or who stole your cheese, it's pretty difficult to repay that person. Right? Balance can't be restored.
It's quite a gap there. Who killed your relative or who stole your cheese?
Well, I'm looking ahead in the narrative a little bit.
Yeah, right. And you know, the Gragos, the medieval Icelandic law codes, they support all of this. Anyone who takes another person's property openly, that is publicly, those people can be outlawed, but they're charged with seizing property for profit, not with theft. There's an important distinction there. The repercussions for theft are far more serious. So, for example, someone who seizes property has opportunities to make their way back into society after being outlawed. A thief's outlawry is permanent, and his crime is unforgivable.
Right. Which, by the way, now you can see just how serious Hrut's comment about Hallgarth was in that first chapter of the saga. This is the fruition of something that was foreshadowed in the very first chapter of the saga. As William E. Miller says, Hallgarth's thief's eyes at last catch sight of something to steal.
Right. This is a big deal. And her thief's eyes are now set on Otkell's storehouse, right? Mm-hmm. Melkoff's got little choice but to do as Hallgarth says. She wants him to go to Otkell's, steal some cheese and butter, then set the whole storehouse on fire so that no one's going to know that the food's missing.
Holy crap. That seems excessive. That's quite an escalation.
Yeah, well, it gets a little worse. Otkell has a guard dog, you see. But it knows Melkoff, and it doesn't bark when it sees him. Instead, it runs up to him and licks his hand, and he pets the dog on the head. And after Melkoff steals the food, he does set the storehouse on fire, and then he kills the dog.
No. That's just evil.
He does what he was sent to do, and this is a major event in the saga. Hallgarth doesn't just steal food here, which would be bad enough. She has the whole storehouse burned down, so there's destruction of property and loss of all the food. So she's really hitting Otkell where it hurts. Well,
and Melkoff killed the dog. He's got a special place in hell waiting for him. I mean, I know there's, isn't that a Sherlock Holmes mystery? With the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime? The dog does nothing because he knows the person who came into the farm. You have to kill the dog to cover your tracks, but still, it's brutal. But the plan works.
Yeah.
Otkell's household discovers the burned building in the morning, but they conclude that it was an accident caused by the kitchen being attached to the storehouse, which, admittedly, is a stupid place to put a kitchen. So, for the time being, it appears that Hallgarth has gotten away with it.
Well, I think that also indicates that, fires in these buildings aren't at all uncommon. I mean, you're dealing with open flame and old coals, so not surprising when things go up in flames. But that's the benefit of building turf houses, that you can rebuild quickly and easily.
That's right.
But there's a little detail that we forgot to mention. On his way home from Otkell's, Melkoff's shoestring breaks while he's walking along the Ranga River. He stops to repair it with a special knife that Otkell had given him as a gift when he first came to his house. Now, I guess he's fumbling around with all his cheeses, and he forgets to pick the knife back up, so there it lies on the shores of the Ranga.
We've seen this before. You'd think secret agents would be more careful in these sagas.
Well, true, but if they were, there wouldn't be as much of a story to tell. So
fair enough. Back at Gunnar's house, Hallgarth isn't exactly discreet about what she's done. When Gunnar and a large group of men return from the Althing, she sets out a lavish table full of fine dairy products that weren't in the storehouse when Gunnar left for the thing.
And Gunnar knows right away that this food on his table didn't come from his pantry. And when he confronts Hallgarth, all she can say is, it's not for men to busy themselves with preparing food.
Well, she's right about that. But I don't think Gunnar's worried about the preparation so much as the source of the food. He starts to lose his temper now and says, it's a bad thing if I'm partner to a thief. And then he strikes Hallgarth.
Not again, man. There's a lot of spousal abuse in this saga.
Well, there's a lot of Hallgarth abuse.
Yeah, and she's in no way afraid after this. She just looks at Gunnar and tells him that she's going to remember this slap and pay it back when I can. And those are weighty words coming from someone like Hallgarth.
Yes, they are. So what we have here is an inversion of the functional partnership we saw between Njal and Bergthora. Right? Gunnar and Hallgarth are both concerned with asserting their own honor and privileges, rather than helping one another to be successful in their half of the marriage.
Absolutely. And the result is that everyone's unhappy and a dog gets killed.
Stop mentioning the dog! You're breaking my heart here. But the consequences of Hallgarth's theft are serious. And it isn't long before the whole event goes public. Skamkel, the evil advisor of Otkell, is out riding along the Ranga River looking for sheep one day, and of course he finds the knife and belt that Melkoff left behind.
What a surprise.
Yeah. With that evidence in hand, he and Otkell seek help from their neighbor, Morth Valgardson.
Now there's a name to make the blood of a saga fan run cold.
We mentioned Morth in our last episode. He's the son of Valgard the Grey and Morth's daughter.
Yeah, he's a relative of Gunnar's, but as we said, he's jealous of Gunnar and hates him with a passion.
Right, and this is his first chance to make Gunnar look bad, which falls in line with Otkell's purpose nicely. Morth helps Otkell prove Hallgarth's theft by getting some of the cheese from Hallgarth's storehouse and proving that it came from a cheese mold in Otkell's house.
It's a pretty clever piece of detective work by the Otkell house.
Yeah, CSI Hlitherendi.
Ooh, I'd watch that. That sounds good.
When Melkoff stole this cheese, he really broke the mold.
Was that really necessary? I'm not even sure that makes sense.
Look, it was that or a series of terrible cheese puns. I didn't think we wanted a whole saga about cheeses.
Okay, so
Saga is a brand of cheese.
Oh God, somehow I'm not surprised.
Wait, you're not gonna humor me?
No.
Okay, so
Come on.
I'm carefully stilting these for your American sensibility. But if you're not going to be serene about it, I'll just fade away and let you go to work. Okay, that's 10. What were you saying?
Well, I would have used Gouda myself, but now you stole it. So were you planning on a Limburger joke as well, or do these jokes all stink badly enough on their own?
Oh, you wound me.
Ooh, listen, if I'm curd with you, it's because time is a factor. Get it? The wolf.
Okay. Anyway, it's not clear that Gunnar even knows of the role his cousin Morth played in this whole episode.
True, but he's still out there lurking and looking for another chance to hurt Gunnar.
Sure. But first, Gunnar has a more immediate problem to deal with. The cheese mold evidence means that things are looking ugly for him. And Gunnar knows the rumor of Hallger's theft is spreading, so he and his crew return to Otkel's farm to offer compensation.
Yeah, and it's interesting, he only returns now. I mean, he knew of the theft, but it's only when it becomes public knowledge that he shows up.
Well, I think it suggests just how serious the problem of theft is, right? That even someone of Gunnar's integrity would rather avoid having his name associated with theft.
Yeah.
Even if it's just about compensating someone for it.
Mm-hmm. So Otkel, once again, is going to be advised by Skomkel here. He dismisses Gunnar's initial offer of double compensation, which is very generous, and sends Gunnar away. And he then sends Skomkel to get advice from Otkel's relatives, the chieftains Gizur the White and Geir the Gothi.
Yeah. Why is Otkel trusting this guy?
Well, that's a fair question. Skomkel's a classic example of a bad counselor, but it's not like no one warns him of this. Pretty much everyone is telling Otkel that trusting Skomkel's advice is really idiotic.
Yeah.
Yet he goes on listening to him anyways.
Well, I mean, we shouldn't discount the possibility that Otkel's an idiot.
Well, I mean, let's see. His brother Halbjorn says, "It's not a clever move to send the worst of liars out on an errand on which, it may be said, men's lives depend."
So, okay, yeah, he's practically calling him an idiot.
Yeah. But remember that Otkel is trying his best to get the upper hand over Gunnar. If he lets Gunnar magnanimously offer a settlement, even if he offers self-judgment to Otkel, he comes out having acted nobly and correctly according to the standards of society. Otkel wants Gunnar to look bad as possible. He wants him to be forced into terms that aren't comfortable for him. If Skomkel's right, the wise and powerful Gizur and Geir can help make this happen.
Yeah, but Gizur and Geir aren't idiots like Otkel or evil like Skomkel.
No, they basically tell Skomkel that Otkel should immediately accept Gunnar's generous proposal. So there goes that plan.
Well, not exactly, because of course Skomkel is practically a one-man game of telephone. The message he brings to Otkel is very different from the one he carried. He says that Gizur and Geir want him to summons Gunnar over the matter at the next Althing.
Oh, I can't even believe this. Every time I read it, I'm shocked that this would happen. But yeah, I mean, this is stupid for a lot of reasons. I mean, what does he hope to get beyond double compensation? Is he thinking that he can somehow outlaw Gunnar over some stolen cheese?
Well, stranger things have happened. But this is Gunnar at the height of his powers. He shows up at the Althing with all 7 of his Sigvason uncles, and Njal, and all the Njalsons, and he even gets the support of his in-laws, Hoskuld and Hrut.
Those two still around?
Yeah, they're still around. They're a little older and grayer, maybe. But Hrut, at least, hasn't forgotten how effective it was when Gunnar threatened to fight him all those years ago. So he suggests that Gunnar challenge Gizur the White to a duel, unless Gunnar is granted self-judgment.
Oh, that again. Yeah, this dueling thing's getting to be a problem, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is. But we're only about a generation away from when it gets outlawed, so I think people agree with you. It is a problem. But in this case, it's strictly meant as a ploy.
Right. So word, and this is the interesting part, word now gets to Gizur of what Gunnar's planning, and once he finishes crapping himself over the idea of fighting the Hamundrasons, he finds Otkel, and he yells at him for ignoring Gizur's advice.
Right, well, that's got to be a surprise to Otkel, because he thought he was following Gizur's advice.
Well, yeah. And now there's a kind of sitcom moment where everyone realizes that Skomkel has been playing games with them. Gizur asks Otkel, "Who gave you the idea of summoning Gunnar?"
"Oh, Skomkel told me this is what you and Geir the Gothi wanted."
"Where is that foul creature who told this lie?"
He's lying sick in his booth.
May he never get up again.
It's a great exchange. And I also like the idea that Skamkill is just sort of cowering in his bed this entire time.
Oh, yeah. He's so nervous about being caught here that he's got his stomach upset.
And of course, now that he knows what happened, Gizur leads Otkill to Gunnar's booth, I presume by sort of grabbing him by the earlobe and dragging him.
Yeah, exactly.
So that they can offer him self-judgment over the whole affair.
Which really gives Gunnar the upper hand and all the wins in the game of honor they've been playing so far.
Sure. But Gunnar's annoyed now, and so he makes the deal much less friendly. Gunnar equates his own ill treatment with the cost of the lost stores.
So that's just a wash. I mean, Gunnar doesn't even have to pay for the damage Hallgrim caused.
Nope. He also gives the slave Melkoff back to Otkill and warns Otkill not to bother Gunnar again if he wants to live.
Wow. Gunnar threatens a lot of people, really. I'm just noticing this. It's big on that.
Well, it seems to be working for him so far. But now he's got Otkill's entire crew out there, and chances are good that Otkill's going to ignore that advice about not bothering him anymore.
And it won't be long before they find another excuse to come after him.
Part 13. Gunnar's Fear.
Wait a second. Gunnar's fear? Gunnar fears nothing.
Oh, there's one thing that worries him. But we'll get to that. Oh. For right now, there's a brief period of peace after the resolution of Otkill and Gunnar's lawsuit.
But like most things in the sagas, this peace lasts only a little while. Otkill's riding with his brothers and his friend Skamkill and Aldolf the Norwegian. A Norwegian. When he loses control of his horse near Gunnar's farm.
Yeah, it's not clear why the horses get spooked, but the narrator is careful to say several times that this is not a ploy on Otkill's part. He's actually lost control of his horse, and he doesn't know that Gunnar is out in the field.
Yeah, and Gunnar doesn't know Otkill's there either. He's busy planting seeds. So when he stands up just as Otkill thunders past, they're both surprised. And before either of them can react, Otkill's spur clips Gunnar's ear and opens a gash.
Right, and this is just terrible luck. Gunnar reminds them all that he'd warned Otkill not to give him any more trouble, but he's also seriously outnumbered. And Skamkill even dares to make fun of Gunnar, which usually isn't a smart move survival-wise. You were more excitable at the all thing when you had your halberd with you.
Yes, but outnumbered and outarmed, Gunnar contents himself with simply saying, "Next time we meet, you'll see the halberd."
But Skamkill's not frightened, or at least doesn't demonstrate that he's frightened. And as the group rides off, he shouts, "Good riding, fellows!"
Which means that Gunnar now thinks Otkill's ride was a deliberate attack.
Right.
This is something you see a lot in the sagas. A bit of bad luck gets blown out of proportion, usually due to the advice or gossip of someone who's not even directly connected to the action.
Right, and Skamkill's definitely in that mold of small men who run their mouths off. Later, he jokes to some other people that when Gunnar was cut on the ear, if he were just an ordinary man, it would be said that he cried.
Skamkill is just a dead man walking now.
Yes. Hell, they've got an actual Norwegian companion with them, and even he probably thinks Skamkill's wearing a red shirt at this point.
Yeah. The other thing that's interesting about this particular moment is that it kind of highlights the issue of fate in this saga, right? Something that Njal is very much aware of.
Right.
So even if there's a peace, even if we hope that things will resolve, fate is leading us towards one thing and one thing only.
Absolutely.
The conclusion of this whole thing. So, anyway, now that Gunnar has a reason to renew the feud with Otkill's family, we're going to see some action. As his brother Kolskegi says, "You'd better report this wound to people so that it won't be said that you bring charges against the dead." Right.
Now, in other words, that means Kolskegi fully expects his brother to kill over this, which is a fair assessment, and as it turns out, an entirely accurate assessment. Otkill and his crew are away visiting a friend for a week, but when Gunnar learns they're on their way home again, he rides out to meet all 8 of them near the Ranga River. And he goes alone.
Well, sort of alone. Kolskegi finds out that he's gone and rushes off after him, but the fight already started before he got there.
Yeah, because Gunnar's really, really annoyed. And so he confronts the 8 riders as soon as they reach him. Andy, I don't know how you read this, but for me, there's a real sense here that Gunnar's got him outnumbered 1-8.
Oh, a little bit. I mean, and he's Gunnar. It's not surprising.
Yeah.
He even finds time to mock Skamkill a little as they rush him. "My halberd's here now." You'll find out whether I'll do any crying for you.
Right, and then the battle is on, and it's epic.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the first man to attack is Hallbjorn White, Otkell's brother, who's actually not a bad guy. But he isn't about to stand by while Gunnar fights his brothers, so he charges in. And in a single exchange, Gunnar catches Hallbjorn's sword in his shield, and then uses his own sword to chop off Hallbjorn's arm.
So he disarms him twice.
Oh, that's unforgivable. That is just terrible. Don't distract me with your offhand remarks.
Oh, you and your awful pun.
So the next attacker is Skomkel. Gunnar grabs his halberd, bats Skomkel's axe out of his hand, and then runs Skomkel through with the point of the halberd.
What a guy. I mean, this is a great moment. Gunnar lifts Skomkel off the ground entirely on the point of the halberd and dashes him headfirst to the ground. And there's a good picture of this. Not an actual picture, but a drawing. I think we could say that Gunnar's a little worked up by this point.
Yeah. He's fighting hard now, but his enemies still outnumber him. He manages to kill Adolf the Norwegian with his own spear, of course.
Well, I think anyone who knows a saga or two knew that Adolf didn't have a good chance of surviving this fight.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I mean, we created that Norwegian companion red shirt for a reason. Anyway, next Otkell attacks, but Gunnar jumps over Otkell's sword swing and hacks him down too.
Yeah, it actually doesn't look like Gunnar needs any help, but Kolskegi rides into the fray at this point and cuts down Otkell's third brother, Hallkel. And then the Hamundersons kill the last three men together. With ease, I might add.
Right, and while they're doing that, the saga author adds an interesting side narrative. We learn that Morth Valgridsson is told of the fight as it's happening, but he chooses to ignore it. Meaning he doesn't ride to help his cousin Gunnar, and he also doesn't ride to help his friend Otkell.
Yeah, that's going to be a theme for Morth. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he loves nothing better than playing powerful men off against one another. But he's rarely around when the fighting starts.
Mm-hmm. Although the saga never really presents it as cowardice on his part. It's more that Morth's a thinking man's villain. He'd rather his enemies waste their energies on killing one another.
True. And meanwhile, Gunnar's killing all over the place at this point. He's good at it.
Yeah, he is. But where Morth avoids combat, Gunnar keeps getting dragged into it in spite of himself. As he and his brother ride home, Gunnar says to Kolskegi, "What I don't know is whether I'm less of a man than other men, because killing troubles me more than it does them."
This is one of those defining moments of Gunnar's story, and it's been hashed over in the scholarship pretty thoroughly. Gunnar tells us a lot in that one sentence. We learn that he's a reluctant killer, but also that he connects his manliness with the propensity for violence.
Sure. And he's somewhat confused by his own reluctance to kill. Gunnar's on the precipice of the old and new Icelands we occasionally talk about. The earlier generations that relied primarily on personal strength as the enforcer of legal right, and the later generations that saw law as a force in itself.
Right, and neither period's absolute, of course. There are men valuing negotiated settlement in the early 10th century, and there's plenty of men who prefer violence among the later generations, especially in the Stirling Age.
Right, absolutely. But Gunnar's fear here is interesting. He's not concerned that he's done something legally wrong or morally objectionable or anything like that. He worries that he's unmanly. The Old Norse word is ovaskari, which literally translates as unmanlier, and which I think puts an important spin on what he's saying. Look, everybody knows that Gunnar's a man of great prowess and accomplishment. He's not worried about that, or at least I don't read it that way.
Right. Only Gunnar seems to think that his manly qualities are hurt by this hesitation to kill, or at least the raw feelings that emerge after the fact.
Yeah, he's worried about a quality that exists alongside his manliness, his unmanliness, a presence of weakness in him that makes him hesitate to kill.
Yeah, it's a fascinating moment for me because it calls into question the very idea of manliness as defined by society. This is an author who's invested in a thorough investigation of gender norms and the repercussions that come with them. We see this on a macro scale in terms of how these expectations shape society, but also on a micro scale in terms of how they shape an individual, his identity, and his psychology. It's an impressive bit of writing and quite sophisticated for the time and place it was written, at least compared to other works produced at that time.
Absolutely. No, I agree completely. So for me, this is yet another way of reading masculinity in the saga. Every man, even the famous Gunnar, is worried about his masculine identity. To return to Jakobsen, It turns out to be difficult to find a man whose manhood is not vulnerable in Njal Saga.
But it's important to add that Gunnar's the only one who thinks he might be unmanly.
Oh, sure. No, but that's just it. No one's masculine identity is totally secure, right? Even privately.
Ah. I see what you're getting at.
Right. So one of the emergent themes of Njal's saga turns out to be that a person's social self is always a little bit different than our interior selves. In an enemy, that difference is a potential weakness to attack. In our friends, it's a vulnerability. But it's also a source of mystery. Right? There are limitations to how well we can know another person, and this is one of them. And in ourselves, it's a source of insecurity. Even someone like Gunnar, whose exterior perfectly matches the social ideal of manhood, is plagued by the vulnerabilities of his secret self.
Yeah, I like that as a way of thinking about this saga. It's good.
And yet, Skamkil's claim that Gunnar was weeping is part of what sends him over the edge. It turns out that Gunnar is just as sensitive as anyone else to suggestions that his manly virtues aren't what they should be. In that much, at least, Gunnar's exactly like other men.
Preben Sorensen actually links those two events directly. Yeah, according to him, the 8 deaths can be directly attributed to Skamkil making fun of Gunnar and claiming that he was crying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But the saga doesn't really pause over Gunnar's worries. We're taking time over it here.
No.
But what Gunnar does is what he always does when the going gets tough.
The tough go to Njal.
Right, absolutely. This time he goes for advice, but I think also as a kind of confession. He needs a friend that he can tell all the things he's done.
But Njal's advice is a little concerning, right? He says that the lawsuit from this fight will end well for Gunnar, but that this is the beginning of your career of killings. That's pretty ominous, especially from a guy that can see the future.
Yeah, now since we just heard Gunnar saying he doesn't want to kill people, it's not great news for him.
Yeah, and Njal's not done. Next, he gives Gunnar some rules to live by if he wants to survive. He says, never kill more than once in the same bloodline, and never break a settlement which good men may make between you and others. You must bear in mind that if these 2 things happen, you will not have long to live, but otherwise, you will live to be an old man.
It's all good advice, but something about Njal's delivery gives it a kind of prophetic tone. And I think Gunnar's response to it is great. Do you know what will be the cause of your death?
I do.
What?
Something that people would least expect.
Now, to me, this is another aspect of what I was just saying. We don't ever really know another person's inner life. I think we get a momentary sense here of the limits of Gunnar's knowledge of Njal. There's something uncanny about Njal's intelligence and foreknowledge, and it seems to scare Gunnar a little, even as it fascinates him.
Yeah, he's sort of poking around a bit here to see how far Njal's knowledge actually goes.
Yeah. And Njal's response is, I imagine, a little unnerving.
Yeah. Okay, so while Gunnar is busy getting his palm read by Njal, Otkell's relatives, Geezer the White and Ger the Gothi, are trying to sort out how to bring a suit against Gunnar without piddling themselves this time.
Right.
First, they draw straws for who has to actually bring the suit, and unfortunately, Ger loses.
Well.
And then they're too afraid to actually bring the summons to Gunnar, even though they have 100 men at their beck and call. It's just dangerous.
For me, this is a really nice juxtaposition in the text. Gunnar's concern is that he's not up to the masculine standards of others, but meanwhile, on another part of Iceland, 2 chieftains are quaking in fear of him because of the violence that he hates using.
Yes. But the saga isn't just equating manliness and talent at violence, is it?
No, not at all. But I think many of the people in the saga do.
Yeah, sure, yeah. So in the lead up to the All thing, Gunnar and his enemies both gather support, and a lot of the chieftains are involved in this case. It's kind of a big deal. We're starting to see this massive scope of the saga. More and more people are finding themselves tied up in the exploits of Gunnar and Njal.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, John, did you happen to see who's speaking up as a supporter of Geezer and Ger? I couldn't help but notice this guy.
Yeah. Yes, my thingman Skafti the Law Speaker.
Ah, yes. Your loyal follower. There he is. Weighing in on Otkell's behalf. Yeah. You know, you really should have more control over your men, shouldn't you? Getting involved in these scurrilous lawsuits.
Hey, he's got a mind of his own. I'm no authoritarian.
Okay.
Besides, even Robert Cook makes a note about this section. He says that Skafti is usually spoken of with great respect, and that he's treated unusually badly by this saga author.
I seem to remember saying something very similar about one of my thingmen, but he's also criticized by Ari Thorgelson in Icelandic book just for, evenness. He says that Skafti's got a tendency to abuse his authority to outlaw. He outlaws many chieftains and many great men.
I stand by my man. Although it's true that he's in poor company this time. And yet, their lawsuit is pretty serious.
It's very serious. Gunnar's charged with killing 4 important men. There's Otkell, Skamkel, Adolf the Norwegian, and Halbjorn the White. And Kolskegi is charged with Hallkill's death. And the jury that's convened to hear this case isn't exactly sympathetic to Gunnar's position. They declare the suit for Adolf invalid because he's Norwegian, but the others are all found to have merit.
But you know Gunnar's not going down like that. Not when he's getting legal counsel from Njal Thorgerson.
No, he's not. Gunnar gets up and recites a complicated legal defense, which has been pretty clearly taught to him.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
He's using a lot of multisyllabic words.
Yes. He declares Otkell an outlaw because of the previous injury to Gunnar's ear. And between that and the Adolf mistake, he declares Geir's entire suit invalid. And, he says finally, I also want to tell you of another procedure I have in mind.
Right. And at this point, we have to give credit to Geir. His response is pretty good. Oh, are you going to challenge me to a duel, as you so often do, and disregard the laws?
Oh, it's good. I love it. Yeah, Gunnar is getting a bit of a reputation, but no. The procedure he has in mind is to charge Geir with minor outlawry for bringing a frivolous suit over Adolf's death, which is pretty serious.
No, it is. I mean, this is all getting into some weirdly nitpicky legal detail. But ultimately, Njal and Gizur step in and work out a compromise. Compensation for Skamkill and Otkell are cancelled because of their previous behaviors. Adolf isn't involved in the final settlement because he's Norwegian. But payment must be made for the other deaths, and Gunnar pays the money right away.
And this is one of those moments when a man can technically lose a lawsuit and still win the game of honor, which is what he does.
And that's a good point, yeah.
Yeah, so Gunnar seemed to have handled himself very well. He stood up for his rights, but also paid without grumbling for the men whose deaths he caused. He's shown himself to be the equal of multiple chieftains, and his behavior throughout the whole thing is honestly, it's above reproach. All in all, a pretty good result for Gunnar.
You're pretty good. But there is that prophecy of Njal's hanging over him. This feud was only the beginning of trouble on the horizon for Gunnar.
Yes.
Part 14. The Ambush at Ranga River. Okay, so Gunnar and Kolskegi pretty much cleared out their list of enemies in that last battle. And we've got room for a breather before Gunnar's next feud.
Oh, not so fast. Oh. There's not that much time, as it turns out.
I was planning on having some crackers.
Nope. Put the crackers away and give the cheese back. We do, however, get an interlude during this section where we learn about some changes in the district.
Oh, right. Gunnar and Hallgríth get word that Hallgríth's father Hoskuld has died.
The famous Hoskuld? Died how? Was he killing his enemies by the dozen? Diving over a cliff with his last enemy in his grasp? Sword in hand?
No, old age. Just old age.
Oh, well, that's disappointing. I wonder if we'll count it for the body count.
Well, tune in and
There's
find
a
out.
for you.
But there's also some good news.
In 6 months.
Shortly after Hoskuld's death, word comes that Thrain Sigvason and Hallgríth's daughter Thorgerd have had a son. At Hallgríth's request, they named the boy Hoskuld for his great-grandfather.
And we also learn at this point that Gunnar and Hallgríth's two sons, Hogni and Grani Gunnarsson, are growing up and becoming men. All that's not terribly important news right now, but I want you to tuck it away because those three boys are going to grow up and be hugely important to our story later on.
Right.
Several weeks from now.
And they've got a really twisted relationship to one another, I want to point out once more. Hoskuld's father is Hogni and Grani's great-uncle, but Hoskuld's mother is their sister.
Next time on Jerry Springerson.
Things are getting a little inbred over at Hitherendy. But that's a problem for the next generation. For now, we need to deal with the consequences of Gunnar's latest troubles.
Right. We've got to reseed this saga with people who are jealous of Gunnar's success.
Yeah, more or less.
We need another good genealogy.
Right. And the way this author tells it, that's not hard to do.
Yeah, Mord's still out there causing trouble, but there's a whole crowd of men working themselves up to challenge poor Gunnar.
Right. Now, we can't hope to give you all the detail that the saga does about the new people introduced at this point, but we'll try to kind of handle it quickly. Once again, get your pencil out if you're hoping to keep track of all this.
This is really a lot of people.
Yeah, it is.
I hope you're ready for this, people.
You take Starkoth's family, and I'll take Ailes.
Okay, so there are two related families involved here. The first is the family of Starkoth, the son of Bork Blacktoothbeard.
Now, there's a nickname that doesn't know when to quit.
Yeah, I know. Blackbeard makes sense. It's actually the literal meaning of Kolskegi's name.
Right.
And Blacktooth, well, it's kind of gross, but it still makes sense. Blacktooth beard. Well, that's overkill.
Well, I'll try to explain the name if we ever get to the end of this saga in the judgment section.
Don't despair, John. We are going to make it through this. But for now, we've got Starkoth. He's married to Hallbera, and they have 4 children. There are 3 sons named Thorgeir, Bork, and Thorkel. Mm-hmm. And they also have a daughter named Hildegun the Healer.
Now, Starkoth's sister Steinvor is married to a man named Egil Coulson. Like Starkoth, Egil has 3 sons and a daughter. His sons are Cole, Ottar, and Hawk, and his daughter is Gudrun Nightsun.
I like that nickname. Mm-hmm. So now we have 8 men and 4 women. Actually,
10 men. Egil also has 2 Norwegians staying with him, fighting men named Thorir and Thorgrim. Actually, there's an 11th man, Sigurd Swinehead, who's one of Starkoth's tenants.
Okay, time out. Mm-hmm. There are even more people introduced in this section, but we have to stop somewhere. I mean, this is a lot of people to keep track of.
Well, I mean, for what it's worth, most of them aren't going to be in the saga for very long. That's why I said to write them down with pencil.
That's true, so I'm glad we... I'm glad we wasted all the time on it. So the Aelsons and the Starkotherssons are cousins, and they spend a lot of time together. One day, they get into an argument with their sister/cousin, Hildegun, who praises Gunnar and warns them not to cause any trouble.
You have to question the wisdom of that advice. I mean, these are difficult men who actually like to instigate trouble. Isn't this just begging them to start a feud with Gunnar?
Well, maybe, but they're pretty good at starting trouble already by themselves. They probably would have gotten around to it with or without her help. So,
well, whatever the cause, the crowd of them then immediately head off to Gunnar's, where they challenge him to a horse fight, and I think generally behave like a crowd of rowdy boys. It's actually hard to take them seriously, except this is a violent culture, and post-adolescent men with swords can make trouble, especially when there's a lot of them.
Yeah. I think their immaturity is really the point here. I mean, the contrast with Gunnar is pretty clear. He's reserved in speaking with them, and he doesn't need to bluster to prove himself. Although he does warn them that if they do anything stupid, like insult him, they will pay for it. So there's another threat from Gunnar.
True. Gunnar agrees to the horse fight, but various people seem worried about it. And as usual, Gunnar consults Njal. How do you think the horse fight will turn out?
You will have the upper hand, but the deaths of many men will come from it.
So you can always count on Njal for a cheery thought at times like this.
Well, grim prognostications or no, Njal and his sons aren't about to miss the horse fight, and they're all there on the big day.
Yeah, and Skarpathan gets one look at the Aelson Starkotherson clan and knows there's going to be trouble. He offers to prod Gunnar's horse since he expects a human fight to break out, and I'm the violent sort like them.
But Gunnar refuses this, wisely so. No one drives Gunnar's horse but Gunnar.
Okay, it's horse fighting time.
And sure enough, when the fight starts, Cole Aelson and Thorgeir Starkothersson shove their horse to knock Gunnar over, but Gunnar's too strong for them, and when he shoves back, they both get knocked down, with their horse falling on top of them.
Yeah, that's got to be embarrassing.
Oh, it's humiliating. And they respond predictably. They jump up and rush at Gunnar. He grabs Cole and body slams him to the ground, but Thorgeir knocks Gunnar's horse's eye out with a stick before Gunnar can grab him.
What? Why? What did the horse do?
Well, nothing, but these are angry boys and they're lashing out at whatever they can get, and they can't hit Gunnar.
Right.
So Gunnar knocks them both down, and the crowd steps in to separate.
Yeah, there's a great bit of characterization here. Cole and Thorgeir are doing the classic, "Oh, you're lucky my friends are here to hold me back, man," thing. But Gunnar just stands still and looks
Sounds
at
like
them.
You've done that before.
Once again, it's the strutting boys trying to measure up to a self-controlled man.
Yeah, and don't forget Skarpathan, who we can always count on to pour gas on the fire. I'm getting tired of all this jostling, he shouts. It's much more manly when folk fight with weapons.
Ouch.
You could just see him smiling.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Skarpathan's grin, there it is. Anyway, the two sides separate, and Gunnar calmly asks Kolskegi to put his horse down, rather than allow it to suffer.
The poor horsey.
Well, that's not the only blood that's going to be spilled over this little shoving match. The Aelsons and the Starkothersons immediately begin marshalling forces to take Gunnar down.
And by now, everyone knows that Gunnar's no ordinary man in a fight. The cousins bring together 30 men for their attack.
30 men against one. That's a lot of men. Gunnar might get tired killing that man.
Well, even Gunnar might find 30 a lot to kill. Fortunately, he's out traveling with his brothers Kolskegi and Hjort when the enemies finally find him.
Right. Now, before we get to the battle, we have an unusual situation. Men on both sides of the upcoming fight have prophetic visions. First is Thorir, one of the two Norwegians staying with Egil.
Oh, right. Yeah, he suddenly remembers that he's a Norwegian.
Right.
He's a little bit worried. No, like we said, it's pretty common for Norwegian companions in the sagas to get killed off, and this won't be any different.
And apparently Thorir has read a few sagas, because he and his friend Thorgrim have no intention of getting involved with this ambush. But Steinvor, Egil's wife, knows a secret about Thorir.
He's not really Norwegian?
No, he's Norwegian. And he's been sleeping with Gudrun Knight's son, Steinvor's daughter.
Oh, oops. Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, oops indeed. She bullies him into going along with accusations of cowardice, but also by offering tacit approval of his match with her daughter if he does go on the ambush.
Well, that's not so bad.
Well, it wouldn't be if Thorir wasn't doomed to die. But
point.
He's seen his death, and he insists that Thorgrim stay behind, the other Norwegian, and asks him not to stay in Iceland, nor try to avenge Thorir's death if things go the way Thorir expects them to.
Yeah, it seems like people are making kind of a big deal out of this whole thing. Let's say once more that they're bringing 30 men to kill one guy.
Right, but as we said last time, Gunnar really is Iceland's Captain America, and a mere numbers advantage isn't enough to make the ambushers feel secure.
Yeah, and speaking of Gunnar, while the Ailsin-Starkathersson clan is getting their numbers together, Gunnar and his brothers are visiting Asgrim Elidagrimsson. They're supposed to be traveling with the Njalsons, but Gunnar decided to leave them behind so that they wouldn't get into trouble on his account.
See, I know we've said this before, but Gunnar's not smart. He's a good guy, but he's not smart.
Well, even he's willing to admit that after he stops on the ride home to have a nap while his brothers wait. He wakes up having had a vision that the three brothers will be attacked by wolves, and that Hjort, the youngest Hamunderson brother, is going to be killed in this attack.
Right. Now, we've talked about this. Sudden sleepiness usually means there's either magic or prophecy at work. And so Gunnar's dream worries him, and he wishes the Njalsons were along on the trip.
But it is too late now. They begin riding, and then they see the 30-man ambush coming toward them.
Right. Now, this is a great
dream come
moment.
true, as it were.
Yeah. Now, I love this. The Hamundersons have to gallop right past the front of the attackers to reach a defensible position at the bank of the Ranga River, and then leap off their horses just as the ambushers attack.
Yeah, there's so much action in this sequence. We really can't include everything, but if you're a fan of the battle descriptions in the sagas, this one has it all. We've got Gunnar firing arrows so powerfully that the first one goes through Sigurd Swinehed's shield, then through his head, and then it sticks out the back of his neck. Pretty impressive.
This is the first time we see Gunnar using a bow, and it's typical of the man. He's got massive draw strength, and the light shields of the attackers are useless against his arrow.
Yeah, and then he kills another man by shooting him in the gut so hard that he's thrown sideways into another man. Kolskegi's throwing rocks, and he crushes that guy's head before he can even recover his balance.
It's brutal. The ambushers realize they can't hope to beat Gunnar if he can just shoot them all to death. So all three Starkathersons rush him.
Yeah.
Gunnar drops his bow, but now he's fighting with his halberd and his sword both at once.
Oh boy.
He disarms Bork and chops Thorkel Starkatherson's head off.
Kolskegi and Hjort are busy fighting as well. One of the Egilsons, Kol, has a particular desire to fight Kolskegi, and he manages to run a spear through Kolskegi's leg while he's busy killing another man.
Why is Kolskegi always getting called out by guys with similar names to his?
I don't know, but I suppose he should be grateful that he wasn't named Thor something. He'd never be done fighting in Iceland.
That's a good point. So Kolskegi's got a spear through his thigh now.
Sure, but we've been saying for a while that Kolskegi's an impressive warrior in his own right, and now he proves it. He rushes Kol without bothering to remove the spear, and he lops Kol's leg off. And then he mocks Kol. So, did that hit you or not?
Oh, this is what I get for not shielding myself. And Kol stands there for a minute just staring at the stump of his leg.
You needn't stare at it. It's just as you think. Your leg's gone. And then Kol drops dead.
Oh, that's just mean.
I know. I shouldn't laugh at it, but it's such a well-delivered line, you know? And tempers are understandably a little high.
Well, I mean, this sort of thing does happen in the sagas sometimes. John Stephenson and W.G. Collingwood point out that this detail suggests a real knowledge of injury and its effects. The shock of a terrible wound really can cause this kind of almost calm detachment for a few moments in some cases.
Yeah, like that scene in Saving Private Ryan at the beginning where the guy's kind of wandering around looking for his arm. Something like that.
If you want to make that analogy, if that helps you, go for it.
Calm detachment. He picks up his arm. He's walking around like, hey. It is an accurate comparison.
I don't deny that it is. Meanwhile, Gunnar kills Kol's father, Egil, and Thorir the Norwegian rushes Hjort Hermunderson, who's already killed 2 men.
Uh-oh. Yeah, these are the two guys who were prophesied to die in this fight.
Well, I mean, yeah, but since the Ranga River is already choked with corpses, I don't think not being prophesied to die is much of a guarantee of safety.
Fair enough. But it's still a moment with a lot of fate at work. And in a brief exchange, Thorir hacks Hjort down, and Gunnar then rushes Thorir and hacks him in half.
I think that needs to be emphasized. He cuts him in half. Gunnar is definitely a little worked up by now.
And he and Kolskegi continue massacring their enemies until the survivors, most of them wounded, finally give up and run away. And the final count is about 15 men dead. 14 of the ambushers and young Hjort Hemunderson.
Yeah, the body count here is impressive, but this is also notable for how many of the dead are important figures in this feud. Right? All 3 Aelsons are dead. Egil is dead. 2 of the Starkatharsons are dead, with Thorgir and his father Starkath surviving with injuries. Thor the Norwegian, he's a dead man. Sigurd Swinehead, dead.
Marmalade, dead. Niedermeyer,
dead. Very nice.
Yeah, the point is that this is an absolute bloodbath. And as Gunnar and Kolskegi carry their brother's body home for burial, they know that there's going to be massive consequences for the deaths of so many men.
Right. And that brings us to the end of this episode. We're right in the middle of a major sequence in the saga, so we'll be back very, very soon with the next part.
In the meantime, you can contact us with any comments, questions, or suggestions through social media, where we are at Saga Thing Pod on Twitter and Saga Thing Podcast on Facebook.
Or you can carefully poke a hole in the end of 2 tin cans, attach them with a piece of string, mail us one of the cans, and then wait till we pick up.
These things are getting kind of elaborate, John. Are you sure that will work?
I have to believe it will. And don't forget, if you have a paper or want to write a paper for our panel at next year's conference in Kalamazoo, the medieval conference, send us an abstract by September 15th. We look forward to hearing from you on that.
Absolutely. All right. Let's go get some rest so we can do this all again in a day or so.
You really think we can do that?
Well, like you, I have to believe that we can. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Bye for now.
No, you're right, T. God forbid I add something.